And it is now time for me to introduce Candice Baughman. Candice is a formerly incarcerated mother of two, wife, and a passionate advocate for redemption and restoration. She works with Underground Ministries as a program specialist for the One Parish One Prisoner program, a program that she herself came home through just 2 years ago. So please join me at this time in welcoming Candice Baughman.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. You can hear me. That's great. I want to thank you first, Gordon, and your community for inviting me today to your Unitarian Universalist service. I was lucky enough to be able to speak today already at the first service, so I've got a little bit of experience on me. It's an honor to be here. And as Gordon had said, my name is Candice Baughman, and I'm formerly incarcerated. I did 7 years at Washington Correction Center for Women, and I released 2 years ago. But when we say that, we identify ourselves as formerly incarcerated, I realize that that's not all I am. I'm also a mother of 2 teenagers. I'm a wife of my husband, Mike. I'm a student at Adams State University, and I'm an employee at Underground Ministries. I work for the One Parish One Prisoner program, and that's the same program I came home through 2 years ago. And I want to begin by saying clearly that belonging is what saved my life. Not belonging as an idea, but belonging as a practice. Belonging as people choosing to stay connected to one another, even when it would be easier to turn away. Isolation has many forms. For many years of my life, I lived in isolation, first through domestic violence and addiction, and then through incarceration. Domestic violence shrinks your world. It teaches you to doubt your instincts, my own voice, and my worth. Isolation becomes normal, and fear becomes routine. I started making decisions based on crisis and need, and I stopped trusting my own sense of worth and reality. And over time, I began to believe that that's all I deserved. This was going to be my life. Then incarceration institutionalizes that isolation. My body being separated from community, my identity being reduced to a DOC number, and my relationships very much regulated, restricted, and oftentimes erased altogether. When I lost my freedom, I also lost familiarity, my ability to make choices, trust myself, or even imagine a future goals. And through it all, there was this quiet question that I carried with me every day. Do I still belong anywhere? Can I survive outside of prison? Am I still human? This is a question that so many justice-impacted people carry. And it's also a question that I believe a lot of survivors of violence carry. And honestly, it's a question that many people have carried at different points in their lives. Belonging is not a luxury. Belonging is a human need. And an unexpected kind of community is what changed my life. Not a program, not a checklist, but an actual relationship. See, my One Parish One Prisoner team was a group of people I had never met that chose to walk alongside me while I was still incarcerated. It was pretty cool. They wrote me letters. They showed up consistently. They listened. They made phone calls. And they really fought that red tape to just connect with me while I was still incarcerated. They didn't come to fix me. They didn't ask me to prove my worth. And they didn't define me by the worst moments that had led me to prison. I have to admit, I didn't trust it at first. They were too nice. I thought, there's got to be something going on here. Many of us that experience violence or incarceration or addiction have a hard time trusting. And we've learned to understand that care is conditional and that love can disappear at any moment when someone gets uncomfortable. So I was waiting for them to leave. Once again, remembering that question, am I ever gonna belong anywhere? But they didn't. They stayed. They walked through prison gates to visit me. They figured out weird secure systems to email me. And in that staying, something began to heal that I didn't even have words for yet. And that belonging was interdependence. I really love that the Unitarian Universalism teaches us about interdependent webs of existence, that we are connected, whether we acknowledge it or not. What those relationships taught me is that interdependence is not weakness, it's wisdom. We do not heal alone. We do not transform or change alone. And we do not become whole again alone. When people chose to walk with me, they were not just helping me. They were living into their own humanity. They were practicing love as action. When I got these letters while I was incarcerated from 7 strangers, started to learn who they were, and they learned who I was. It was like I was getting new friends that knew the new me, not the one that was making all those bad decisions before I went to prison. When I was released, these people who had walked with me inside and gotten to know me showed up on the outside. They met my family, my 2 kids. They shared meals with me, and they sat beside me in community spaces that were really scary. I want to share with you one of my favorite stories. One of the ladies on my team, her name was Nancy. And when I got out, I didn't have a license. I lived way out, 20 minutes away from town in a little town called Tenino with my mom and my 2 boys. And I was scared to go to the Department of Corrections and check in for supervision. And I had to check in every week. Well, Nancy at breakfast, 3 days after I released, she said, I'd be willing to drive you. And it was so cool. He drove all the way out to get me in the morning. And, you know, I didn't expect it, but every single Thursday when she picked me up, she always had like a scone or like a muffin or something there. And then of course, you know, like a hot cocoa or a tea. I wasn't a big coffee drinker, and she knew that about me. She knew me so well because we had talked for a year before I ever released. And so when she picked me up every Thursday, that notorious like grandma feeling or a church lady feeling kind of came out, right? And sometimes she like bought the muffin. Sometimes she made, you know, scones and would tell me about how she made it, all on the way to check in to a very scary process. A process that I was scared every single time something bad was gonna happen and I was gonna go back to prison. And every single Thursday, she drove me back. I remember when I first got my license, Nancy's like, okay, so you could drive yourself now. I about had a panic attack. Wait a minute, we've been doing this for 2 months every single week. I don't want to drive to DOC. And she said, okay, no, not a problem. I'll continue coming. What I look back now and see is that she saw how scared I was, and she wasn't just gonna leave me to do this on my own. But she did something super smart that I never would have thought. Now looking back, like they say hindsight's like 100% or 50-50 or something. So the first day she drives me, she says, after I get my license, she's like, well, what's going on? Like, how come you don't want to drive yourself? And so we talked about that. I talked about, well, if I go back to prison, if I mess up, she goes, well, why would you mess up? We talked about that. And I told her, I was like, I don't want my car left there. I want someone to be able to contact my kids and my mom in case something happens. And then the second week after I'd had my license, we talked about the realistic is that I wasn't using. I was doing well. There's no reason to be scared anymore. Then the third week, she said, how about this? How about I will meet you at DOC? You just drive yourself. And then it was so funny. Guess what? She literally had a blueberry muffin and a chai tea waiting for me as we sat and waited for my name to be called. And that fourth week, she talked to me on Bluetooth the entire way driving to DOC and back. She slowly weaned me off and taught me how to feel comfortable and have the independence while not leaving me alone. It was that type of wisdom and belonging and family that I received that really made the difference. And that's just one story of the 7 relationships that I built with my One Parish One Prisoner team. I remember thinking often as these situations happen, rides to DOC, going to the DOL, are they still really here? I was navigating what felt like reentry alone, but with their presence, I wasn't anymore. Their presence gave me confidence when the world felt super overwhelming. Their consistency, just like Nancy driving me to the Department of Corrections to check in, helped me replace that fear with confidence and a sense of worth. This is what belonging, I believe, looks like in action. Unitarian Universalism declares that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. For me, this is radical. So many systems are built on the idea that worth is conditional, that it can be lost, revoked, or earned back in some way. Belonging says something different. Belonging says your humanity is not up for debate, and transformation happens together. Transformation is also one of your shared UU values, and it connects closely to one of our core values at One Parish, One Prisoner: mutual transformation. This work is not easy, and I'd be lying to you if I told you it was. Walking along someone like me who's experienced trauma, incarceration, addiction, it requires patience. It requires humility. It also requires a willingness to learn. And I believe it brings deep meaning to both the person inside and those in your community, in your congregation that have chosen to volunteer. I have seen communities transformed by doing the One Parish, One Prisoner program. Fear and stereotypes give way to understanding, labels give way to names, and distance gives way to mutual care. So the invitation today is not simply to help or give somebody something, but it's to belong with someone. To practice love, not as a sentiment, but as action. To live in that interdependence. To create a beloved community where no one is left behind. You do not need special expertise to do this work. Nancy wasn't an expert. She was just Nancy. And she had persistence. It'd be nice if you had some consistency. And we need an open heart. I stand here today not because I did everything right, but because people chose to stay with me. And I am proud to announce that your congregation has said yes to One Parish, One Prisoner. They've said yes to walking alongside one person who's still incarcerated on their journey home. And now we need 7 to 10 of you sitting here listening today to volunteer to be a part of your One Parish, One Prisoner team. After 7 years of incarceration, it was people like you who helped me lead my life and why I'm talking in front of you today, or even feel confident to tell you my name. Right now, there's someone just like me sitting inside a cell, surrounded by cement walls, waiting for letters from their team, just like I once did. Wondering the same question that haunted me: do I belong anywhere? After the service today, we'll be holding a workshop to answer any questions and share more about this program. And then there also should be some papers about how to register, and there'll be a link. And the hope is that we can get 7 to 10 people today to create that One Parish, One Prisoner team at your congregation. Belonging truthfully changed my life. And today you have that opportunity to do it for someone else. And I want to thank you. Just knowing that your congregation is open and allowing me to speak today means so much. And I look forward to seeing some of you after the service today.
Thank you, Candice.